Hey, morning.
What's up, man? Dickie.
Yeah.
How are you, brother?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Good, man. You're looking good.
Yeah, I'm fit as a fiddle.
Oh, this is so cool, man, that we get to do this. I've been looking forward to catching up with you.
We've come a long way, Randy.
Gosh, does that mean we're old?
I mean, we're something.
How long has it been, dude? I haven't probably talked to you in close to a decade.
Yeah, not unless it was on Facebook or something.
Right. No, that's why I like being able to. I know it's still a cheap version of a communication method compared to a face-to-face conversation, but this is pretty cool and as close as it gets because, like I said, you look good and I can see it like in your eyes and your face, and that usually says a lot, and more than what most people want to admit. And at times, my own face has wanted to admit, but
no, you can tell. You can tell a lot by how bright or how dim the light is, for sure.
Yeah, man. I like that word. The light. You can see it in the eyes.
Yeah.
Just then we're gonna have an authentic conversation. I'm gonna hopefully put together some good content that both of us can use. And more importantly, get to, catch up with each other and explore some topics that I know probably mean a lot to each of us is the goal. And so, I guess you can feel free to catch me up to speed on what you're doing. You're living in Las Vegas, I assume, right? Or Henderson?
Yeah. So, after wrestling was over, man, I was kind of like, do I want to try to do the Olympics? And then I was like, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. And then I started to kind of like go down that road of the MMA. And, I moved around a little bit in Missouri to kind of get my amateur thing going. And then I moved to LA, for a year, and kind of it really wasn't a good fit. And then I landed in.
I didn't know that. I don't mean to interrupt, but when did you move to LA?
I would say, I was living with Ryan Luna for a little bit, and I was helping over at the St. Louis Community College with Dave. And then it wasn't working out for me. I didn't have any transportation. I didn't really understand what I was supposed to be doing there. I wanted to compete still. And, I wasn't ready to be a coach and take on that responsibility. And it just kind of blew up in my face, and, I just wasn't ready to be a coach there. So that's when I was like, oh, I'm going to move in with one of my buddies. And then, we launched my amateur career right after I left St. Louis. And the coaching gig over there after I left Lindenwood, and then that's when I kind of moved out to LA after that.
Right. Now, why LA? What was drawn out there?
So
there
was a local promotion, and he was working with the guy that kind of got Randy Couture started, and he was Rico Chiapparelli, and he was a national champ for Dan Gable, a world champ, was on the Foxcatcher team, and was in LA and was doing his thing, and kind of was they called it the Raw team, which he got sued for because the Real American Wrestlers was like coined by the professional wrestling, so he had to call it R1. So it was formerly known as Raw, and then it became R1, and then so Randy started with this guy, and he knew a lot, but he was a little he was just he was hard to work with.
So was that your amateur still, or was that your pro? That was the launch of your pro. So, that was your debut.
I was 5-0 when I went out there as a pro, and then I had 12 amateur fights in about a year and a half, I think. And I was just like, there's nobody else that wants to fight here in Missouri. And then nobody
else wants a piece of Tricky Dicky.
I guess not. And that might, I was just like, look, what do I got to do? Who do I got to be? And I was just
You were
like,
young and you were hungry, man.
yeah.
I remember that. I enjoyed, following a lot of you guys that we competed with, and it was fun to watch you and Brookins and Rio, to name a few. The
Salter, man,
Salter,
we all just like that whole squad, man, was just, we were just, top of the heap for sure.
Legendary for sure. It was a cool time in each of our lives. I'm sure you can relate. So then you went like 11-0, right? You started racking up win.
12-0 amateur, and then I was 5-0 until and then 5-0, and then that's when I had my first loss as a pro, was when I was 5-0. But that guy ended up being my roommate for a couple years, and he was one of my best training partners.
Isn't that cool?
I mean, it was so weird because it was the same shit that happened with Mike Rio. It was like, the only guy to ever beat me twice, and then we become teammates. And
well, I think that's funny because when you get into such high level talent, which you were at with wrestling, obviously, and you were making your way with MMA, it's like the crowd gets small, man. And so friends of friends know people, and there's only a select few camps and select few areas where people need to go to be, to make it.
I couldn't figure this out. And I would think about this. I was like, why is the crowd so small for like wrestlers, high level wrestlers? And what I've realized is just that there's such a small group of people that can handle the training, that want to compete and not get any recognition or payment for their suffering. And it's like, you have to love it, love the game, and appreciate the lessons that it teaches you to do it. And it's flow wrestling is starting to figure out how to make money on it, and push it, and have the media and really kind of build it up in a way that's gonna benefit everyone. And like, it's still, when you look at it, there's just, when you get on the senior level, there's 8 weight classes, like those guys are getting $2,000 a month to fucking train, but against the hardest, toughest motherfuckers in the world. Like that's it. You league minimum for fucking football, if you're just a regular Joe, you're getting 400,000, whatever, 500,000 just to sit on the bench. And it's like what are we doing wrong? Like, if we're the superior athletes and the best of the best, like why aren't we getting compensated for it? Like what is the problem?
So let me play devil's advocate and just think about this. Knowing you, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but when I first met you, like, you were this like mysterious individual who kind of like creeped in the shadows, and you did your own thing. You definitely were a character of your own design. And so I'm thinking about that, and because you're still wrestling, and I'm wrestling at like my kids' little league to show them a duck under or something like that, and I put my shoes on to not grapple and wrestle like you are still doing. So, and you kind of answered it there. Why should people care about wrestling? But more importantly, I think my point was the only reason that you do care is that it's kind of that outside thing. Is there any truth to that at all? Is that part of your personality?
You're right on. You're spot on. Like, I was definitely an odd duck when it came to like a lot of the training and just the way I kind of approach life. But you
have to be, though, to be successful, man.
Yeah, you do. It's a hard road, and it's like we live in this utopian society where it's like, you can go to the fridge and you can get food whenever you want, and like no one's trying to kill you, and I kind of almost take it a little too serious, and I find myself with these high school kids that I'm coaching, that sometimes you gotta it can't be life or death every day, but that's kind of how I approach the training.
And I'm the same way, and that's why I love what you do still, and I loved wrestling myself, because that I see myself in my endeavor of like philosophy and just the way of life people should be, how I believe people should approach life. I take it to that same degree of like, well, it sort of is life and death. Every single day is a chance for you to live or a chance for you to die, either live stronger or take one step closer to death. And I think by, I set myself up with these daily rituals and this grind still of keeping myself healthy and trying to be 1% better in many ways than what I was yesterday. And, I learned all of that from high school coaches, from little league coaches, up and through college. I started learning it myself. And it's such a hard sell. So tell me why should people wrestle?
I think for one, from a self-defense aspect, my wife is a law enforcement in town here, and she just kind of like graduated or upgraded to a more of a coaching and teaching training position. And a lot of these people, they need to understand like how to like control people and like just get out of situations, and not necessarily like in jiu-jitsu where you like you choke or maim people, but like you want to preserve the body, and like but in a more civilized way. I think being able to handle yourself in serious situations without hurting the other person, it can be valuable. And just using the human body as a weight and as a chess piece to kind of navigate life and like serious situations. It's I think just one of the best tools, and it's fun. It's fun to compete against one another, one-on-one, mano a mano, not relying on other people, and just being one-on-one is like, there's nothing better, I think.
Yeah. And so those are two things. We'll go back to the first one, the self-defense. Holy smokes. Like, what a lost art. And like, if you want to talk about high level of anxiety, imagine walking around not being able to have a sword that's sheathed, and nobody, like, I like that, how to be a true warrior, it's, you almost don't even ever have to pull your sword, because I think there's like some sort of an aura that you put off, that for one, just it's your vibe, it's your energy, like we said, it's that light that says, hey, you may not want to approach me unless you're ready to do serious battle. And so that just keeps the negativity, a lot of it, at bay. Obviously we each know how you can go out and look for it, but I think you get
to the point where you take yourself out of situations where you like, before, when I was in college, I was so competitive, and I would bring that competitive nature to a party or to a bar, and I would invite it, which was just my immaturity of just wanting to abuse this power, this kind of like secret power to use against people that didn't have any idea.
Secret power. And you're exactly right. And that's one of my biggest complaints about society, is they make our alpha masculinity, our strength, they make it such a secret, and they make it something that we can't use. I got told so many times growing up, oh, don't be so competitive, Randy. It's not all about winning. It's not all about taking control. And they're correct, but that's only half the story, because what does that do with our aggression? What does that do with our ability to want to take control? It wasn't directed appropriately. And we were left as adolescents and young men to have to explore. And by the grace of God, I think with a lot of luck, me and you can both say that we got through it. Yes, we worked hard and we had to wrestle with what was right, what was wrong, but it took a lot of effort and a lot of work that most young men aren't willing to go through. And it took a lot of luck too. And then unfortunately, if you don't have those, then you're lost these days, because that aggression, that masculinity is trying to be stuffed out, I believe. And you hit it though. We had to explore and try to find that out. And, thankfully, like, we found that out correctly. And now you're able to pass that on. I want to jump into, kind of segue that into now. So now you're passing what you do on to kids. Talk more about that and what that, entails and how that makes you feel.
Yeah, we were, I mean, I don't know if you know Tyler Perry. He was a heavyweight over at Mizzou. And we went to the same high school when we were 5 years apart. So when I was a freshman in college, he was, a freshman in high school. And then we were always kind of like, I would come back and train with them, and we would always like talk shop and pipe dream about, winning championships and, just living life through wrestling. And he's the head coach, and we've kind of been like a dream team. He's the head coach. I'm the assistant coach. He's a lot of the macro, and I'm a lot of the micro. And we have a good system that can produce pretty well. So
explain that a little bit on why you consider yourself, and I agree wholeheartedly that that's your skill, but to maybe somebody who's not familiar with wrestling and martial arts, what does that mean? Why are you a good micro coach?
I'm a nitpicker, and I can really take my all my experience, and I can look at a kid and just look the way he carries himself and his body type, and I can say, hey, this kid needs to be good at this, and like, because of his demeanor, maybe he's defensive, maybe he's offensive, and his short, or maybe he's short, he needs to get close and get underhooks, just like little things that I can kind of like dial in, and Coach Perry can also dial guys in, but he's definitely better at like administrative stuff, looking at the calendar as a whole, and
the big picture
but he's also very good micro, but like that. Sure. That's my specialty. And like, he can be like, we need to work on this. And I can just really go to town and focus on a kid and get him where he needs to be. And, we have a great system when it comes to like how to manage kids and how to get the most out of them every year.
What sort of a program are you working with? Is it a growing program? Is it,
when we first got here, there was, basically, I was still fighting, and he had just had a kid, and he was decided to start teaching because he was fighting too, and so he was just seeing what his options were, and a lot of people were saying in the city, basically Nevada is the north and south, it's Reno and then all the surrounding little cities, and then it's the Valley, which is Vegas and Henderson. And one of the towns, the school to go to in like the 60s and 70s was Valley High School, but now it's kind of like the ghetto, predominantly Mexican and Black, and just very poor and very dangerous. And it was one of his only options, and basically everybody said nobody goes to Valley and is a success. So we kind of took that as a challenge, and we went there, and in 4 years took a program that didn't have anything going for it, and we got a couple kids to college, we got a couple all-state kids, had a kid that never wrestled in his life as a freshman and got him to the finals in his senior year and got him a scholarship. A couple
That's
stories.
Awesome.
Yeah, a couple stories like that, taking kids that never wrestled a day in their life in 2.5 months, get them to the bubble match to go to place at state is pretty tough to do.
Now, was that a tough sell to get these kids on the program?
Oh man, it was. I was like, these kids don't have any fathers or mothers, or they just don't have a reason to go to school. And basically I had to go out into the school and pick fights with these kids and be like, oh, you think you're tough? You want to disrupt my class? Like, okay, come to wrestling room. I will give you $1,000 if you can take me down. And I don't care if you punch, kick, or do whatever. I will give you $1,000. And I would call these guys out in front of the whole class. And then, they would never show up because they'd be like, man, Coach D's crazy. Like I'm not gonna go there. But then it would get around, and then a couple kids that were serious would join, and that's kind of how we, kind of like put the word out and got the culture going.
Maybe you mentioned this. You were feeding me a lot there, so I want to take it step by step.
Yeah.
You're actively teaching at the school?
I was substitute teaching. I was kind of doing. I was like part-timing because I still wanted to fight, so I didn't want to commit to the full-time teaching. So I would.
How was that? Like, I mean, subbing, the actual teaching aspect of it. Difficult.
It wasn't really my thing. It was just a means to an end, but it was a way for me to have access to the kids during school and kind of get in their ear, plant some seeds, and kind of just see what the whole overall school was, kind of like the vibe was. You could get in there and be a little mole and be like, okay, these guys are the athletes. These guys are the ones that, you could really kind of see what you were going to deal with and have access to them throughout the day. And it was just a good way to recruit and kind of see what was out there.
That's so cool. You're like an undercover recruiter for wrestling. And I mean that as, a lot of people maybe would hear that and be like, what do you mean? You only got a substitute teaching job to try to get kids to wrestle? And it's like, obviously that's the point. That's what the point. These kids need. Man, you would be a perfect example of, like, you just said it. Come and punch me. Come and try to kick me. I'm going to show you why you can't. I'm not going to hurt you back. I'm going to hurt you enough to the point that you understand that I could totally hurt you, which usually just means some form of control. Like wrestling and grappling is the best.
At that school, it was, a lot of these kids had no respect for males because, they all had
no wonder.
And they needed to be, you almost have to like show them in a way that, like, look, you can do whatever you want to me. I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help you. Look, I can show you this superpower that can get you opportunities to take care of yourself, lift yourself up out of this poverty, and in a way that kind of the way I need it. I was just trying to be the guy or the mentor that I needed when I was a kid.
Who were those people for you? Because
I had a lot. I've always had great coaches. I always, high school coach, club coaches, Ryan Sharkey, Nick Perler, the Mira Katanis, Ron and Dave. And Parisi Smith, I've had a lot of great coaches, a lot of One Kick Nick, my Muay Thai coach, Sergio Pena, my jiu-jitsu coach, just a lot of guys that have, were a legend in their space and just all around good people. So I think that's been a lot of my success, and a lot of families too. It took a village to raise me, for sure. To be out of trouble. So,
do you have any role models that you haven't met, living or dead, that you could think of?
Oh man, right now, I don't know if I can name any right now. I think that was always like. I never wanted to kind of like be some like fanboy about somebody, and I always was like, oh, I want to be like them, but I don't want to like let them know, and I wanted to always compete with people, and I never wanted to put anyone on a pedestal that I that I thought was that I could eventually one day be. But there's probably somebody I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head that I'm just like, oh, that is my my God or whatever.
Right. No, I understand. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I was just curious because you mentioned a lot of people that were actively in your life. And I went through your Facebook page a little bit in the last couple of days. And I saw that there was this picture with your high school coaches. I don't know which one was which, but I think you just named them. And one of them was jumping sky high in his suit.
Yeah,
probably after you won state.
Yeah, I was a tiny little guy. So the big guy was Ryan Sharkey. And then Kevin Fowler was the smaller guy.
that moment, if you showed up to, you know, the arena at the moment that happened, and you didn't know anything about wrestling, you would be really confused. But I hope at least that you could, I at least have the belief that you could feel what that moment is, because I've been to other state tournaments. I've still gone to big matches, and it's not only at state tournaments, and it's not only in high school wrestling matches, but it's a moment of true ecstasy. And that picture actually captures it perfectly, because you have a grown man in a suit, and he's jumping up in the air, and there's a little boy in a singlet, and he's obviously thrilled, but you don't even see his face, but you can tell by body language. So that moment right there, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because we've each experienced that. And it's like, if you could capsule that up, and you could get street level prices unbelievably. I mean, that drug would spread. So why can't we get, I get it. It's a lot of work to a small moment of time, I suppose.
Yeah, but you think about, like, look, we still remember, like, when I look back on that, like, look, that was in front of 20,000 people. You know, I was the last match because there was it was 4 classes. I was going to 3rd overtime in that match. So everybody was watching me, because the rest of the classes were finished with their 103-pound weight class finals. And I was just, all eyes were on me. That's why that was such a big moment. And to just, like, you know, the 6 months that it took to get there, and all the work and all the 3-a-days and all the weight that I cut, it's just like, you'll never forget that. And it's just like, you know, a lot of these sports, you know, you can hide in the group because it's, you know, the team, and it's, you know, it's just it's you know how much work goes into just that one moment, and you know you'll never forget it. So it's
and nobody can take it away from us.
Yeah,
you know, because it's impossible to take that away from us. And you just said, not only are you going to forget it, it just can't be taken, no matter what happens to you the rest of your life. That moment, you know, I've personally, I went through a rough patch with some addiction and stuff. And to be quite honest, without getting so foo-foo about that, what dug me out was having to dig back into the mindset that I had to use to cut weight, to win big matches, to live up to expectations that were appropriate. So as soon as I was able to, and it took a lot of effort, but I was so thankful for being able to, at least at one point in time, have that memory, being able to look up into the stands of people 10 feet above you, because you are down below in sort of some like gladiator complex, and everybody is, their eyes are on you. It's like so much light, and to absorb that, and you'll never forget it. And I was able to tap back into that. And God, I wish we could share that, like I said, in pill form with people.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's like everybody wants, you know, the McDonald's hurry up and give it to me quick, and nobody wants to put the work in. And it's a hard sell to tell them, hey, like, you're gonna put all this work on it and it may not even work. But it's like they don't understand, you know, that process, and like the consistency and the accountability and the discipline. Those are the treasures. Those are what you're learning. It's not all, you know, it's fun to win medals and win championships, but it's like, if you can, you know, I always hear people say, man, I wish I would have stuck with wrestling. And like, well, it's like, you can still do it. It's like, but it's just like, oh, it's like, oh, I just got to get in shape before I come work out with you. It's like that kind of like, oh,
right.
You know, they understand it, but they don't want to be better. They, you know, or they don't want to take the risk or the effort to do those things and learn those lessons without getting paid highly for them. You know, like they don't understand what kind of person you'll become when you kind of learn to hold yourself accountable. So
sadly, though, these people can't. Monetarily paid is one thing. People would sacrifice being able to be paid monetarily for being able to get recognition. But like we've talked about, you can't even get recognition for wrestling or anything tough these days because it's such a slippery slope. Nobody understands toughness or wrestling. And so if you started talking to your friends and trying to explain what you did, it just wouldn't be recognized. And without that recognition, 80%, 90% of the people are saying, screw this, man. This isn't worth it. And
Yeah.
but you said
until they see, they're like if you look at all the champions in the UFC, I mean, they're all folk style wrestlers, American wrestlers, you know, like there's a reason for that. Like whenever you understand, like, oh man, like it's not, you know, like I know wrestling's a boring sport. And it's like, here's what I understand too. It's like it's easy for the average Joe to say, oh, I understand, the ball goes in the hoop, they win. Oh, you run the ball into the touchdown area, you win. Okay, you hit the ball with the stick. It's so easy. Like that's like fucking checkers. Like whenever you're doing human chess, you're like, oh, they're just fucking butt fucking each other or humping each other in wrestling. Like they don't understand. Like it's like that's like quantum physics. Like that's, you know, basic, you know, geometry. It's like they don't understand fulcrums and levers and like, you know, positioning and angles. Like, you know, like they don't understand because it's hard for the average Joe to understand what is going on when you're wrestling another person. You know, it's easy for them to understand, oh, throw it in the hoop, you know. So it's almost like, and they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they're not as smart as they think they are. Like, you know, it's really hard to understand wrestling and to apply it. You know, it's not like, you know, where we start, everybody ends. Like, oh, you touch me in basketball, like, that's a foul. Like that's where we fucking start. You know, we start with the
confrontation.
Yeah, we start with the foul, you know?
Right. And I think that's important because that's what, again, as a philosophy, as a mindset, I think many of us have lost is the ability to confront things appropriately. And that's what's cool about wrestling, even, you know, compared to, you know, some of the other, I think biasly, maybe, of course, as a wrestler, but the limitations that are put on you without the ability to strike, I used to think was some sort of a weakness towards wrestling. And now that I've gotten older and I appreciate the philosophy of it more, I see that it's its strongest component. It binds you in a grappling match of when you want to strike, you can't. And so there's that slight limitation amongst the chaos.
Yeah,
that just makes it so beautiful.
You think in the Greco-Roman times, like, you know, the people in the Colosseum, they were slaves. So like they didn't want to damage the units. So they wanted, like, this was like a civilized way for them to settle situations and still keep their property, you know, and kind of like create this, you know, competitiveness where it's like, okay, like you're gonna go against my best man, and you know, like let the winner keep the other person's property. Like, you know, let's not damage. Like, so it's like the most confrontation you can be it's the most civilized way of all the combat sports, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, and that's why I am just such an advocate for it. Obviously, I'm encouraging my son to compete in it, and he's doing that. And I just love watching how difficult it is for young boys to figure this concept out. And I didn't appreciate that value of the sport of having to figure it out. And like you said, not allowing on a whistle from an arbitrary figure that just says, oh, that's a foul. And now let's line up and pay the price. And it's like, no, let's let these boys kind of play ball. Let's figure it out, you know? And
let's wrestle with it, you know?
Yeah. And that's why you said it earlier. It's like, I'll get into shape, you know, before I work out, or I need to do something before I wrestle. And it's like, you're just missing the first step. And it's that first step of having to, you just said it, let's wrestle with it. Let's figure this out.
We're at. Let's see where we're at. And then we'll just like, okay, I'm going to expose myself like vulnerably, individually. I'm not going to be able to hide behind something. Oh, I'm out of shape. I need to get in shape before I work out and get in shape. You know, oh, like let's see where we're all at individually, and then we'll go from there. Like,
okay, expose. I like that word. Let's expose ourselves to this. And another word is engage. I use with my son a lot. Let's engage, the situation. Let's not hide. And you just said that word hide. So I think about, wrestling exposes you clearly. And it's an exposure of engagement, which is just, it's a miraculous thing to watch happen. And that's why it truly is an art.
You can really see the character in somebody, like how they react in these confrontations. Like you can see it just opens these kids up. When I see these kids, I'm like, oh man, this is a fighter. Like, sometimes you just never know. Like, the guy could be the most quietest person, and then you let him go and he's just like, this kid's a killer. Or the guy that talks the most, where he's like this, and then they're not the guy you think they are. It's so kind of like cool to see people's different demeanor when they get into these exposure engagements. And I really love that about the sport. So it's you get to find out a lot about people just by participating.
And you would think that is probably, I can't think of any greater skill as a human being to sum up one skill that you want, is to sort of be able to expect and react to the unexpected, and to be able to engage that and work with it spontaneously. Just like, what you just said, who are you under fire? Because in essence, every single day we're under fire. That's what I said earlier. I was joking, but life and death, I believe that every single day is a chance for us to be attacked, or it's a chance for us to go out and attack what we want. And, to be able to practice that, and wrestling gives adolescents, it can give adults a chance to practice being under pressure and being in a highly stressful situation. I think it's just beautiful.
Yeah, and still go home to your wife and kids, and kind of like not take yourself so serious in life. And but
exactly,
you gotta, if you're gonna buy a house or something, like you're gonna be like, all right, let me go turn the AC on and see what happens. Let me go turn the heater on full blast and see what happens. You gotta pressure test yourself, before you go make the big buy.
I like that. No, that's a lot of sense. And I don't think people understand their extremes. They haven't tested themselves in the darkest of times, which I think it's tough. I don't know if I thank God for the losses, but I thank God for what the losses brought me. I know that those dark times, that low pressure, the lowest extreme situation, and then the highest extremes of the victories and the thrills and the wins. And it's like, and then what you were in between all of that is it's cool to be able to observe yourself in those situations. All right, I want to jump back into it's still wrestling related, but talk about it as when you were a kid. Like what drew you? I think about this. Do we choose our interests, or do our interests choose us? And how did it work with you in wrestling?
Oh man, I don't think I had a choice. Last name Dickman, tiny, really scrawny. I was just like a target and bullied. It was just like I had no choice. So
and this is, where is this that you were growing up? This is the mean streets of Hannibal at this time?
Oh yeah. So, well, I mean, Hannibal was a good town, but it had it was just a little farm town, a little river town. So I mean, it's a good town to grow up in, but every town's gonna have its bullies. And
I just visited, not to interrupt, but we drove through in my travel van, Hannibal.
Oh yeah,
Lover's Leap. Do you know about Lover's Leap?
Oh man, that's one of the staples back there. Like,
is that where young Dickie was? Bound chicken bound.
That would probably be a good place to go and get caught if you wanted to.
It was just a cool view, man. It was a cool view of the city. But anyways, so get back to the point. So you were young, you were small, you were, kids get bullied. Think about that though. I know I keep rambling on. I'll give you a chance in a second.
No worries.
Anybody, and I think almost everybody can experience a time or had experienced a time when they were bullied? You just said it. You could make fun of somebody's name. You could make fun of your height, being tall or small, or your brother is actually tall or small, or, you know, your mama's fat, or you don't have a mama, or you don't have a dad,
Right.
you know, but you know how it goes. Kids are ruthless. Life is ruthless. But,
Yeah. Exactly.
So you were getting picked on, and then what?
You know, I was kind of just looking for community, really. You know, I would just hang out with after school, and one of my friends, Lewis Doran, and he was like you know, he had hit puberty really quickly, so he was like a super athlete, you know, the fullback for the football team in middle school. And just I would hang out after school, and he was like, hey, you know, football was over, and he was like, let's sign up for wrestling. And I was like, all right, let's go. And, you know, and so I went and signed up with him. And we
So
both
what age is this?
This is middle school. So what were we, like, you know, 12 or 13. 11 or 12? So, and I lived fairly close to school, probably like a mile and a half away. So I, you know, I would just hang out, and, you know, I would walk home after school, and, you know, he picked me up and outside the school and was like, let's go back in and sign up. So I signed up, and then we both went for 2 weeks, and then he quit. And then I loved it. You know, I was always a natural at it. And so it went from there.
And now in high school, you won state 3 times.
Yeah, that's correct.
What, when did the switch get flipped to like, this is an after school hangout, to like, hey, I'm going to do this thing,
you
man?
know, I was eating chocolate Long Johns and Slim Jims my 7th, 8th grade and 9th grade year. And, you know, I just was having a good old time. I was a JV stud. And at the end of the year, my freshman year, everybody was getting the awards at the awards banquet. And I was like, you know, so like, well, I thought I was good, and I wasn't getting any awards. And all the varsity guys are walking up, getting their awards. And I was like, I remember at the end, I was like, you know, I would be like, oh, my name, no. And then I would be like, you're not calling my name, no. And I kind of like cried inside a little bit. And I was like, you know, like, I thought I was better. And then that was when I was like, you know what, next year is my year, you know? So that's kind of when I decided. I was like, and back home, there was always, they really memorialized everyone that had been through the Hannibal Pirates, you know, school system. And they would have all these record boards in the high school gymnasium, and it was just like, you saw them every day, and it was just like, oh man, look at that record, look at that guy, you know, this guy was a 3-timer, or, you know, they had, and all the state champs had a picture with their beat up face. And, you know, we had like all the champions, all the second places, all the third places. And I would just, you know, all the way back to the 50s and 60s. It was just always something that was on my mind, because, and, you know, the coach always talked about the people that came before us, and about legacy, and you know, leaving something behind that no one can take from you. And you know, that just really hit home to me, you know, once I was a sophomore. And you know, I could start thinking about that past, you know, my, you know, putting stuff in my mouth. Like, you know, when you're a kid, you can't control what goes in your mouth. And that's one of the hardest things as a wrestler, you know, even as a person. It's just like, if you can control what goes in your mouth, and be disciplined in diet, like, it's like, that's hard for kids to do. And when you can do that, it's just like, there's nothing else that in life probably that you're going to have trouble controlling, is when you can control what goes in your mouth. Like, you know, and once I did that, it was just like, I was in the right way, you know, I had more energy, you know, I could compete. And it's just like, you know, I always, once I got momentum, I never let those, the momentum go.
Do you think that had a lot to do with, and I think this is sort of a rhetorical question, but your goal setting? It seems like you probably always had something still that you wanted to do.
Oh yeah, I was always a numbers guy. I was like, you know, I was just, you know, and we always tracked everything, whether it was like escapes, you know, major decisions, regular decisions, tech falls, pins. And I would always read, we would get a printout at the end of the year of like, oh, these are the leaderboards. These are the guys that, it's like one of the first things that was always, is like the person that gets the first takedown, like 80%, 90% of the time they win the match, stuff like that. And like, if you got the escape record, good job, but you're probably you're taken down a lot. Like,
Right.
it's like things like that. And, I could start to kind of like look at people that were on the team and be like, okay, these guys are good at here. And, these guys are good at this. And then I started, to do that wrestling math where, okay, like if I could beat this guy, he's got this record and I could, I just kind of slowly attack the numbers one by one. Okay, I'm just going to try to get the first takedown. Like, I'm going to try to get that record. And then, I started to win the most decisions award. Like, my first year I won state, I was beating people by decision. And the second state championship that I won, I was majoring people. And then by my third state championship, man, I was tech fall and pinning people. I got the tech fall record for the team. It's just, I was a numbers guy. I would always look at guys and be like, okay, this guy, he beat somebody 8-0. He's probably good at taking people down, but probably really good at riding people. If somebody's beating somebody like 6-12, that means they probably took them down, let them go, took them down, let them go. So it's like, I would always look at the numbers and try to like, just take those little steps, like from a just regular decisioning people to like, okay, now I think, I've got a couple takedowns. I can kind of rack up the score. Let me see if I can, major decision people, like you get a takedown or two, a takedown and a turn every period, you're probably going to, get that major decision. So I just kind of looked at the numbers and tried to compete with goals that I could reach and not reach too high, but reach far enough to where it would push me.
Dude, that brings me back because now I'm remembering exactly what I liked about you when we wrestled together. You were like the oracle. I remember it now vividly. You were the student of the sport. Yet, like, you knew records of individuals, not only just individuals you had wrestled, but you were such a student of the sport. You knew guys that we were wrestling, your other teammates. You would help us out. You could understand it to a level. So
that's that micro that I'm good at. Like
that scientist. Like, but now, where do you merge that? Because you're obviously such an artist. If you watch you wrestle, which is way more fun than to watch somebody like me wrestle, even though completely different styles, but you would see you are an artist, man. And so isn't that cool how the science, the study, like how does that work then? Because you can do as much as you want on paper, but at the end of the day, you got to wrestle the match. Right. How does that translate? Talk about that. Because that's what I think separates the best. And you were there.
Merging that artful, lots of reps and just, man, I don't even know it's kind of fun to think about though, like being a numbers guy and then trying to like just do it for the fun of it is I always
would experiment with moves. I loved drilling with you and working at practice with you. It was a love-hate thing, obviously. But it was fun because you would always provide some new perspective on what was going on. And so you did play. It was all play during practice.
I always loved just pressure testing stuff against. I was like, when I was a kid, I had this box of Legos that didn't really amount to anything, but it was just a bunch of Legos. And me and my brother, we would get dumped on my grandparents and they just would give us this box of Legos and like we'd be in the basement. So we would build these cars and then we'd go to the top of the stairs and we'd be like, all right, I'm going to throw mine down the stairs and see which one stays together. And they're the winner. And I'm kind of like, I think that's what I like to do with opponents. I would like, all right, like this one is kind of like long and tall and this one's like short and stocky. Like, let's see how they like mesh together and what can they do to make each other better. Like that's always my mindset to like, get better and pressure test.
Well, I think you said in the beginning of what you were just stating that lots of reps, repetition is the mother of skill, which allows you to do things while you sleep is another, I could do that in my sleep. And it takes that level of mastership, because it's just at that point in time, it's just about the amount of mat time. It's just the amount of reps and hours. You got to put the work in.
It goes back to culture and lifestyle too. Like, if you want to be an artist and things, you got to live. You can't go to practice and for 3 hours and then go home and never think about it until you come to practice again. Like, if you're doing
it's like
that,
you can't record music for 3 hours a week and then expect to be a record hit label artist. You got to put the time in.
You have to live and breathe it. And that's if you want to merge the science with the art, like, you got to live and breathe it.
That's it, the breathing part of that. You have to, embody it, which means you got to do it. And I think that people miss one of those two components because they're sort of a chin down, headstrong. I'm going to do it and I'm not going to study what I'm doing, because that's really difficult for these types of people with that mindset. Or you have the alternative, which is I'm going to study a lot and I'm going to figure this thing out, but I'm never really going to take that first step to do it because I'm too much of a coward or whatever. And so it's those two different mindsets where if you can, boom, merge those things together, like we've just been talking about, which I believe you have, that's, and again, it's like you said, it's a culture. It's probably been ingrained in you from tens of thousands of hours on the mat.
Wow. I think it goes back to your lineage and the way, what kind of, like, Germans and Filipinos are very combative and just, they have a lot of, pride and a lot of war in their blood. And I think that kind of contributes too.
Let's talk about pride. You just said that.
Yeah.
You think that got you into trouble a few times, when you were younger?
Sure. For sure. Definitely.
It's such a balance, man.
It's so hard. I kind of let a lot of stuff slide a lot more these days. I'm still, Coach Perry, he knows how to, he's a good mouthpiece for me. And he can call me off, and I respect what he has to say, and sometimes he keeps me out of trouble because I let my pride get the best of me, or I just, everything doesn't have to be life or death all the time. So I'm finding a way to balance all that.
So then the age-old dreaded question from like every dating app in the world: what do you do for fun? Because dude, in all honesty, I want to know, because I scrolled your Facebook page and you can't say wrestling or martial arts. Is there anything else that you do in your life that you could think about that just kind of tickles you? Because you're serious, and you're serious about your craft, and that's awesome.
Well, me and my wife,
how do you kick back?
My wife is, man, and I want to say, like, I don't hang out with anybody who doesn't train, and that's kind of funny because it's true, and it's I'm always at wartime, so and I pride myself in that. I'm just like militant about it. My wife gets on to me so bad. She was like, we have to go on vacation. We haven't been on vacation in so long because I just been clawing my way to the position I'm in right now, and I think I like to go to comedy shows and kind of lay back and laugh a little. I like to laugh and not be so serious. So I like to go to comedy shows. There's tons of shows here in Vegas to go to. To have a good time. So I don't really go to the Strip a whole lot, but when I do, I like to go hit a good comedy show.
I think, I think I probably struggle, not as much as you, but I do struggle with, that question. And I try to ask myself a lot, what do I do for fun? Because I like to take what I do serious. And I think life is serious, and we should take it as such. But there's always that balance aspect. How do you know if you're taking it serious if you never take a second off and to compare, And so laughter is, there's always that cliche. Laughter is medicine. it helps, it helps us, at least for me, again, going through some heavy substance abusing times. And it's like, dude, if you can laugh a little bit more and kick off a lot of that bullshit, you're probably going to be able to add some years and add some quality to those years of such a cool thing, like life.
Yeah, the balance of that is definitely one of my weaknesses is I'm so hyper focused on the wrestling season, and then training people at my gym, and it's it's hard to kind of like turn it off. So
because there's so many problems, and you and I want to go out and help people. You want to help kids, you want to spread the word, you want to build your business. There's we've got problems. That's how I always phrase it, and not to be such a pessimist, but there's things that need doing. And I find that
we try to fix things like that's in our nature.
Right. And so you take some time off if you go away, and it's like, as soon as you leave, you start thinking about all the things you could be doing that you probably should be doing. And then then you're not even having fun getting away.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happens. You're like, oh man, I'm fucking up. Like I should be doing this. I could have did more, and that's that whole wrestling thing too. I think it's just like, that there was always somebody that was working harder, and you're like, man, I'm not going to let this guy get an inch. And, but.
Oh yeah. I remember those days that, it was a terrifying thought, but it's what would wake us up in the morning. It's what would get us out of bed to do those early morning runs with 4 layers on, because it's a terrifying thought that somebody else is out there doing something more than you and going after what it is that you want. And it becomes like almost like a race. Like, well, I got to go now. I got to get up now. I got to do it. But we're limited in our resources. I think there's a burnout factor. We've each felt that, both in competition, I'm sure, and in life. If you're honest with yourself, I think we've each felt burnout.
Oh yeah, you got to push that limit. And the older I get, it's more like your technique gets better, but like the body just doesn't recover as quickly. So stuff that I used to be doing 3 days 6 years ago and recover in 24 hours, and now it's kind of like closer to 3 days now. Like if I'm doing a 3 a day for a couple of days, man, I mean, I got to shut it down for a day or two to be like, okay. And that's hard for me to swallow sometimes, but I have a lot better technique, so I can kind of like conserve and be okay in certain situations. But that's hard for the wrestler, the high level wrestler, to kind of think that you can't go to battle every day.
You're 38 now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? I mean, you're obviously a physical specimen. Like, what do you do day in and day out, to summarize?
Oh man, so I'm at the gym by like 10, and then I basically I go till about 1, and then I'm on the other side of town, on the east side of town, and I have to drive all the way to the west side of town. So basically in the valley, mountain to mountain. And then I go to practice till about 5:30, and then I drive back to my gym, and I have a couple of classes until about 9:30. So that's most of my day, Monday through Thursday.
Are you doing that? You're not doing you're not like weight training. You're just strictly training wrestling, martial arts.
We weight train at the beginning of the wrestling season, and we kind of like, right now we're phasing it out because it's, we're getting closer to the more body weight stuff. We're trying to just streamline it towards the end. But we heavy lifting from basically like July till I would say November.
But what are you doing personally? Because I'm 37. I consider myself.
I just do it with them. So,
okay. Okay.
So it's.
And then what about like, how do you wake up in the morning? Because again, man, we're late 30s, and I think it's just so rare to see people like me and you in that grade of shape. And it's like, what are we doing that other people aren't? And I know that you're active, obviously. You live a lifestyle than most, but are you doing anything interesting? Yeah.
Consistency, like I'm just like any other person. I got to get up and get a cup of coffee, and I'm not big on breakfast right now. Sometimes I'm not that hungry in the morning right now. I probably don't eat until afternoon. So I do a lot of fasting, and then have my biggest meal probably like pretty late in the day. And so I fast. I try to eat lean, and I eat meats, chicken, lean foods, and that's.
You said you fast most days, and that's usually how I answer the question too, because it's like I don't really care for breakfast these days, but it's not like I'm some sort of a religious faster every single day. I'm not trying, my son
Yeah.
made us a breakfast the other day, and so it was like I ate,
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
it's like I think what I like about what you just said and what I do and what I try to tell everybody else to do is, hey, why don't you just become in tune with your body?
Yeah.
Why don't you start asking yourself, what do I really, I want that cupcake. You say that on the surface, but do you want what that cupcake is going to provide for you afterwards? That sick feeling in your gut, that lack of energy, that just kind of, or should that be left for a time in the day or a time of the year or month that works for you? And people have a hard time becoming in tune with their self,
No, they
and their
don't. They
body.
don't. They don't. You think about like a lion, like you want to lions hunt when they're hungry. Like they're like you can't you can't go to battle to war for your country like if you're on a full belly. Like you got to be hungry. Like so I kind of almost like I take that, I'm just like, yeah, I want to chase that hunger a little bit, like where
So
it's like,
you relate the hunger, the physical hunger, to a mental state of mind.
yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly, because I do know that when I eat my first meal of the day, I shouldn't be planning on anything productive the next few hours. In
No,
fact, I'm
I
gonna
want to let
have
that
to.
digest. I want it to recover. I want to absorb all the nutrients that I can, and then
And it takes almost like a revival for me to start getting going again. I would have to probably do a second set of movements. I have to get out or at least walk around the block for a few miles. And so I understand that, like, the days that I really want to be most productive, I've found that fasting, it's counterintuitive to most people. They would say, well, I don't have the energy. How do I have the energy? Our bodies have energy, and we can create energy. I
everybody's
just think,
soft.
I know, man.
So soft. And I get to the point where I'm just like, well, maybe this isn't a good fit for you. Like this, maybe this isn't for you. And I gotta turn
You
people
can't
away
twist
sometimes.
people's arm.
You can't, and they'll find a way to be the
No
victim.
pun intended.
Yeah. So
tell me what you're doing with your business then, like the coaching and the American wrestling. Like, what does that consist of?
so basically we're it's a self-defense, and it's like wrestling is the main thing I'm trying to build. We've only been open for a month, and this started in the pandemic in my garage, and I've always trained in my garage, and it turned into a place that people wanted to train, and we were getting 15 20 people in my little 20 by 20 garage, and I was like, well, this is starting to get where the neighbors are like, what's going on over here? Like, they would see people like grappling, or like,
There's a real life fight club across the street.
no, exactly. I would kind of be worried that the people, they would call the cops and be like, this guy's running a business, a fighting business out of his garage.
Right.
So kind of was like, hey, let's give this a try. And I had some friends that wanted to kind of like help me with it, and they helped me financially and creatively, and kind of organize everything into a 1,200 square foot garage 2.0, if you will. And it's just a place that wrestling is going to be our main thing, but jiu-jitsu is probably second, and then MMA is kind of third on there, and self-defense is always going to be in there, but basically a more wrestling based jiu-jitsu school, and we want to be good at those two things, and then the MMA will come with the serious people that want to like really fight. So but we really want to be something for the kids and you know, the recreationals, to kind of have a place that's safe and that they can learn and you know, lose weight or you know, be proficient in wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
So primarily the kids. You're open obviously to the adults who want to learn the skill of wrestling.
Yeah.
Is that a realistic sell for a lot of adults at this point in time? Have you felt
You know,
that?
I think too, the wrestling kind of like makes it a little more calm. Like when you know, we talked to my business partners about it, and we're like, you know, combat club sounds aggressive, and like, you know, like jujitsu or like just MMA in general is like, you think of, when you say MMA, you're like, or jujitsu, you think of fighting. Like when you think of wrestling, it's a little, you know, it's a little less, you know, like, oh, okay, they're just wrestling, you know. So
it's even interesting that I think the terminology of a jujitsu is a fight, right?
Exactly.
Of a
Well,
match,
you know,
fight.
wrestling is, you know, take down and pin, and then
Right.
you know,
Jiu-jitsu's fight to the death.
Yeah, it's like after the pin, you're isolating limbs, and like
right.
you're either twisting the head off or twisting a limb off. So, you know, that's
man, I love your idea. I really do, and I don't mean to criticize it. I'm just kind of chipping at you a little bit and getting your thought process.
Yeah.
Because I loved dreaming as a kid, and when I was in wrestling, I was like, I wonder, you know, if we could teach other adults. Like, I wonder why my parents wouldn't want to learn how to wrestle, as I was doing a little kids wrestling clinic and stuff. And it was just, it's such a no-no, you know.
It's hard for adults because, for one, they have to go to work the next day, and most people, like, wrestling is free to kids in high schools because, you know, it's in the high school system, it's in the college system, and it's free. But like, to get into those free places, like, not some average Joe Blow isn't going to be in shape enough, or it's like, you know, like, I'm not going to go to a gymnastics gym as a noob, as an old man, and like be trying to roll around with the tumblers. Like, it's hard. You wouldn't be, it's like, how can you take this intro version for an adult and like show it to the world without getting them hurt? And it's like, most people teach slam the head, grab the legs, and it works. And it's just like, it's very, you know, basic. And it's just, it's hard on the body. Like, and I think I've come up with a way that I can teach the intro, but I can also teach the advanced and not get them hurt, you know?
Right. Yeah. And, you know, we've pretty much just, for the last hour or however long it's been, we've convinced ourselves, at least a little furtherly. And, you know, I think we've made some really strong points on just exactly why everybody should be wrestling. So I don't disagree with you. I more or less am just, I worry about the amount of people who obviously have their go-to arguments, of course, of the nowadays, the touchy-feely even thing of, you know, not even being within 6 feet of somebody, let alone humping them on the mat.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't necessarily know, you know, what your thoughts are on that concerning the, you know, post-pandemic, if you could just, you know.
You know, that is definitely, it makes it hard right now for people to kind of be like, oh, but I mean, just like, you know, people go to work, they have to be in close, you know, quarters with people. Like, you know, you get used to people's germs, and, you know, I think it's going to be fine. Like, you know, it's, and I think being a wrestler, your immune system's going to be pretty robust and strong. So like, you don't want to run away from germs. You actually, you need germs to build your immune system up. So running away from the work or the germs is not, like, you know, I think if people explain it in a way that's like, hey, this is, you know, like, okay, like it's kind of like strange times, and, you know, being close to people is not good. Like, yeah, some random strange person, you know, but somebody that has a strong immune system, and, you know, where, you know, everybody, you know, when you go to USA Wrestling, you get a USA card, you know, that has insurance. Like, you know, something bad does happen, like, you know, these kids can be covered, you know, and you know, like, let's not be afraid of all these germs. Like I think they're gonna make you stronger. Wrestling's gonna make you stronger. So like, if that's your take on it, like you're probably like, again, this is probably not for you,
Right.
Maybe you should go play Foursquare or badminton. Those might work for you because those are, those could,
Yeah, it's, when you encounter somebody like that, you almost do just have to gently let them know that if the germs, the things that we can't see or even feel or touch, are what is your most pressing concern at this point in time, then we've probably got to take a step back and reconsider your you doing this. And I think that alone might just be enough to get somebody curious as to what exactly you do mean. And maybe it's only 1 out of 10, maybe it's only 1 out of 100, but that's really, again, you can't twist their arm legally or morally speaking into the building to get it done. It just wouldn't work.
Look, again, you explain to these guys, look, these are the toughest people in the entire world. If you're afraid of a little germ, you can't handle that, look, you're not gonna make it. If that's, there's a reason why that it's such a small group of individuals that are even able to do this, let alone rise to the top.
Think about even the term, it just dawned on me, self-defense, you just hit it with the immune system is getting self-defended as well. You're building the defense mechanisms of being in the close proximity with other people, which I think is, in again, a philosophy speaking terms, that's what we should be doing, is trying to get closer to people. That's what we need more of these days, is to come closer together. Obviously, that's a little different terms in a wrestling match, but I think in a way, how wrestling somebody actually brings you closer together, or fighting somebody for that matter, as you learned, with sharing roommates.
It goes back to the wartime. If you're in a foxhole in World War I, you want to be in a foxhole with somebody who's not gonna cut and run. They're gonna have your back because you're gonna need them. You want quality people in your circle. You don't want somebody that's just gonna be like, oh, sorry, you're on your own, buddy, because of the germs. You want somebody that if you're at wartime in a foxhole, that they got your back. And that, you don't want to be having, the person that's just going to cut and run,
Yeah, you do want to know those people that you just mentioned about in the foxhole. And, you would think, obviously, a place like your club would be a good place to find those types of people. That's where you would start there rather than a knitting club, you would think, as fine as knitting is. But it, for choosing somebody for a partner in a foxhole, I'd take somebody from your club over the knitting club next door.
Yeah.
All right, dude, we gotta kind of wrap up, but I want to finish with some rapid fire questions.
Oh, here we go.
And I'll try to keep them short, because I always find my way into expelling upon the answer some way, but I'll try not to do that. So, how much do people have control of their lives in a percentage? From they don't have any control, 0%, to they have 100% control of what happens to them in life?
Man, I think 85%. I probably have control by 85, maybe 70, 85% of the, and then I think it gets smaller and smaller, as you get older, and you're trusted with, you become an adult, I think you have 100%. Once you're, when you're a baby and you have handlers and parents, you don't have control of everything. But as you become an adult, when you're 100% responsible for yourself,
I like it. All right, next question. Are you religious?
I'm spiritual. I don't know what. I guess I'm Catholic right now. Because Bishop Gorman is Catholic. I'm definitely believe in a higher power, and that you just, there's definitely some sort of higher power, whether I think that goes with the science, and then just believing in something that's the merge of either the numbers and the art. I think science, and then there's spirit out there somewhere. So
right.
And
it comes together in beauty.
Yeah, it comes together. Everything kind of makes sense. We're fucking, everything is just like a miracle to me, like, life and the universe. And so that's why I'm just like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I know that, there's nothing else that I'm supposed to be doing. So that's like, I just believe that, everything kind of was just like put in my place, and I'm answering the call to whatever deity is out there, and doing what I'm supposed to.
I love it. I love it. You're married. How long have you been married? 2 years?
Yep.
Are there any future Dickies on the arrival anytime
my
soon?
wife just,
what are your thoughts on father?
Oh man, I told my wife that it was a deal breaker if I didn't at least have one. So she's in a career that she's on graveyard shift, and her schedule is going to change massively. So it's really hard for us to kind of find like one day together to where we can spend time together. And like, if we added a kid to that, I think that it would be really hard. I told her, like, I don't want to be 60 when my kid graduates high school. So like, we're running up on like a year or two, like it definitely, and right now it's like, my kids are my wrestlers right now. And I really just put my heart and soul into those kids. And, that's good enough for now. And, I'm not ruling out a kid, but it would definitely, it's on my mind. I'm maybe someday when the time is right, but right now is probably not a good time. So I definitely, not saying no, but I'm not saying yes.
It is difficult because I know how much you pour into your, not just your kids, I'm sure, but just anybody that you coach, even in your club, and who you interact with. You're so passionate about that. And then, to be able to share that with a child, it's hard to even fathom, I'm sure. Okay, last question then. Out of all of your competition, out of all of your victories, wrestling, fighting, which one stands out to you the most and is your favorite victory?
Probably that first one. That first state title was my first state title, and then my first amateur MMA fight. I mean, the high from those two was like days. Like I just remember, like, I was just like high for a week, like just like oh, I want this feeling again, and I never want to let it go. Like, and it was the same for my first MMA fight. Like, I was just like, this is amazing. Like, and that MMA fight, that first one I had, it was just like, man, this was just like the first state title in wrestling. And I kind of, and that's kind of like gave me that propellant to kind of keep going in the fighting, because nationals was cool and all, but it was like, it was a small crowd. I felt like it was like a, for our nationals, it wasn't as big, like 20,000 people to like,
a freestyle tournament at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Like NAIAs was still like, I would say we're up there with D2s, like Division II level. We're like the second best kind of like league in all of the wrestling leagues. But it was just, it was so cool to win nationals, and I understand the magnitude of it, but it's just like the crowd, 20,000 people in high school, like first time, like, dude, it was like I was in a Coliseum, like the roar of the crowd, and with same thing with the fighting. It was just like, it was just different. So that first state title was probably the best.
Yeah, I will admit, man, I totally feel like I let myself down on the fighting deal. I should have definitely engaged into that. And it's like, that's one of those things that I try to speak to my son about most authentically and honestly about. It's like, we all have those moments in life where we make a wrong decision and we know it. And it's so easy to just like, a wrong decision where it could drastically change the course of your life type of a decision. And you made the wrong one. You can get caught up and say, well, I am who I am because I made those decisions, but we're all human and we all think about what could have been. And that was one of those decisions for me. I remember it vividly. You and Rocky and everybody was starting to experiment with MMA, and it was a heavy thing, and not the sense that, yeah, we could scrap on Main Street and get in a fight. Even though when somebody's planning on fighting you and you're planning on fighting them, a date set, it's a whole different deal. to be honest, what made me feel like such a coward was the training. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to make weight. I didn't want to put myself through that grind. And I'll be the first to admit it. It was a terrible mistake on my end. But I commend you is what I'm saying, dude. I respect you. I respect all the boys that stepped into that. And I can imagine that high that you got from that experience, because it's incredible, you know?
Yeah, I'm an adrenaline junkie, and it just, man, and I'm a masochist a little bit. Like I associate like success with pain. So and that's my kind of like, you know, something wrong with me, and like there's something that's just not connected there that most people are like, you know, they were like, pain, go away from the pain. Like I'm just like, there's the pain, let's go, you know. So
that's what I mean, man. When I first met you, I can see that from a mile away. I was like, there's something not right about this guy. No. He's got a couple screws loose a little bit, but no, in your own way. I think you know, if you know that, and you know your quirks, and you can understand how you can integrate that to the rest of your existence, to find meaning, you know, to find your interests and your calling. Like you said, I don't know if there's a higher power or not, but it's like, I feel this calling. I feel something telling me this is the direction I need to go. And when you can tap into that and follow that, I think it's a sin to actually not do that, you know, because, you know, so many people that you've impacted with your coaching and with just being, for me, for example, being able to consider yourself a teammate and then watch you compete and then watch you grow as a human being. You know,
I've come a long way.
But being able to watch that, you inspire me, and you would have robbed me from that if you would have chose the lesser path. And that's what I try to remind myself. And as you know, as I continue to go through life, that, hey, there's people counting on us, man. And they're counting on us to do what is our calling. And
you think about all, you know, and I never thought of this until like I got a little bit older, but like you're at a competition and they play the anthem and you're just like, I used to think like, all right, let's get this out of the way. And so, but like, when you think about those people that, you know, went across the Delaware and like fought for our country, and like, we are able to fucking play a game for a living. And it's just like, man, I feel so lucky to be able to just be here and compete. And then I can continue on and share these, you know, this knowledge that I have. And it's just like, I get to play a game every day. And like, you know, it's the closest thing to
we're
like,
so wealthy, you know, in this country,
like, you know,
there's so much talk about the 1%. And it's like, I've said this before, this stat blows my mind. If you make like 27 grand a year, you're in the 1% of the world, not 1% of America. Yeah, you're poor in America, poor. Yeah. But what, I mean, you can still be fed. You can still have a roof over your head, you know, but what you're talking about is like, so if we're fed and if we have a roof over our head, what we're lacking is meaning. And that's where people go to these mindless jobs. They jump on a freeway. They don't follow their passion. They don't follow that calling that continues even to call them every single day in various directions. As they proceed through life, they get another calling, and it calls again. It leaves a voicemail or 5. Yeah. And then, you know, then it starts emailing you. And it's like every day they ignore the calling. And, you know, I just pray that I'm not doing that myself. But
I call those like God winks. You know, it's just like my, you know, there's little things like this, like you know, whenever I got the call about the job over at Bishop Gorman, and you know, my coach used to love AC/DC, and like, you know, he would play that, like he wouldn't let us, you know, we weren't that good, and he would just play his music. So we would listen to AC/DC the entire practice. And I would just like, I hate this. And then like now as I'm older, like when I hear that, I get all fired up because I know like it brings me back to these, you know, when I first started. And like, you know, I don't really listen to the radio a whole lot. And I turned the radio on, and then, you know, that song came on, and I was just like, you know, that's a sign from some sort of like, hey, go this way. This is, if you want to continue down this path, like you're, you know, like little things like that would happen.
Right. And people would say, no, that's a coincidence, man. And you'd say, no, it's not, because I noticed it. I was aware of it. Do you know
Yeah.
how much stuff you could be aware of? Do you know how much stuff you could have been paying attention to? It's infinite, really.
Yeah.
The radio, you could have been paying attention to what's going on above you, your cell phone, so on and so, a million different things, but you noticed it. And that's why I believe it is a miracle. Because out of all the things that you could have been paying attention to,
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah, so that's again, that's like the calling of the higher power or whatever. The frequency that I'm putting out, and those, that certain sound is attracting the things that I want in life, and I'm manifesting it. What in this whatever simulation we're doing, like it's I feel like things happen for a reason. So
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. Well, hey, we're gonna end on that.
Yeah,
that's power right there, man.
Been a great, a lot of stuff I got off my chest, man. It's been almost therapeutic for me.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that, because I feel the same way. And that's what one of these things that I'm doing is trying to get these recorded videos going. And I've asked myself, because I'm going to put it in like a vodcast form, like, but what's the aim? Where are you going with this? What's the destination? What's the climb? What's the vision? And it's like, are you trying to be the next Joe Rogan or what? And it's like, I don't know. But what I do know is that what I'm doing right now feels good. Like when we can engage, just like that wrestling match, our conversation was sort of like a wrestling match. It just goes from one thing to the next.
I agree.
And in that process, forced conversations that ain't shit. When you're talking about the weather or what your past acquaintances and, oh, how's Tim? Oh, good to know. All right. Well, those conversations aren't therapeutic. That doesn't feel good. That's just monotony.
But when it's the social convention to go through those kind of like, oh, how are you? And this and that. And, it's kind of just like the surface.
That is surface level stuff. And that I don't, that's fine for some things, but I like getting deep with conversations. And I enjoyed this, because like I said, in a way, it feels like we're kicking it yesterday in that red little Ford Escort that you got stuck into the curb down on Main Street.
Oh yeah. It really did. If it, like we come from an understanding and from a place that like, it was just like we were on the same team, 10-15 years ago,
Right. What an experience that was too, being able to share that together. I loved it.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, let's not make it another decade. Let's do this again sometime real soon. And I'm wishing you the best with your, yeah, dude. The other thing is I made this silly promise to visit every state in my travel van, and I haven't hit Nevada yet. And so I know I make a lot of promises with that travel stuff, but I would love to see you in person. I'd love to see your academy. So.
Awesome, man. That would be great. Bring the family on. There's tons to do here. If you need any tips there's tons of cool little, like, there's like the Warm Springs, there's a mountain, there's, you can go all the way to Lake Mead, or you can go all the way up to the mountain. They're all pretty close, like with an hour apart. And, there's a strip, and there's
right. If it worked, we'd have to have you as like our, we could do like a hiking tour guide for a couple hours one afternoon.
Yeah, I would love, I got a dog, and I'll take my dog up there with you, and we can make it a little morning hike or something. That'd be cool. Maybe do a little video chat on the top of the mountain.
That would be rad. That would be, man. All right, Dickie. It was good, dude.
All right, Randy.
Love you, man.
All right, love you too, bro.
All right, have a good one, buddy.
You too, pal.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.